This podcast is recorded on the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam peoples.
British Columbia, I've seen your mountains high, seen your pretty rainbows and your blue crystal skies, watched your winding rivers as they flow around the bend. To me you're not a stranger, you'll always be a friend.
Coming to you from the West Coast, this is Politicos. Today is July 30th, 2026.
I'm Scott Lundbaum.
And I'm Ian Bushfield. On today's show, July comes to kind of a quiet end, but with some fireworks inside the BC Conservative Party where they're cleaning house. Carrie Lynn Findlay seems to be just like purging everyone. Or they're leaving voluntarily, depends who you ask and what frame you want to look at it. Federally, Carney is calling some byelections, but he has many more to call as the parliament turnover is pretty high this term. Support this show at patreon.com/politicos. Let's just dive into the popcorn and the drama. A lot happened this week in the BC Conservative Party. None of it was particularly positive for them. I think the first story was Rob Shaw's kind of unexpected and weird bombshell that someone inside Carrie Lynn Findlay's office was directing some but not all staff and MLAs on her team to stop using the term First Nations.
Well, not just that, but bring back the term Indian.
That definitely got the most headlines. The guidance was to just stop using the term First Nations. That's too woke in the language of the memo he received. Instead, one should use the terms like Indigenous, Aboriginal, or Indian because, you know, the latter is still the name of the law that the federal government has, and therefore it's fine. And Aboriginal is in the Charter and the Constitution, so you can use that. I guess Indigenous isn't too woke for them.
Which is weird, because like that's very much the current preferred term. So if anything, you would think the ire would be focused on that one.
The way I've wrapped my head around this is it's one of either two things. And I think you suggested in this in Slack or DM that it tells exactly what era Carrie Lynn Findlay is as to which term offends her the most. It's the one that became most prominent during her like political coming of age. But I think what it actually is that the term First Nations has the word nation in it, and she wants to deny sovereignty claims of Indigenous peoples. And so that's what I think the actual motivation is. I don't think it's like they want to say Indian a bunch. I think that's just a bonus for them. I'm not saying they're not racist. I'm just saying their racism is subtly different than they're necessarily being accused of. And it's very funny, right? Because Indigenous and Aboriginal cover different groups of people, including First Nations, but also Métis and Inuit, because they have different histories and different relationships with the crown, which is why all these terms are important and useful in different contexts. But this didn't go over well.
Yeah, they got several days of WTF coverage on this one. Finally today they came out and denied it, but you know, it was not a great week for the Conservatives when this was the main thing everyone was talking about.
A couple MLAs spoke out against it. I noticed in Rob Shaw's thing, he did emphasize that only some were shown it.
Which raises so many more questions.
Yeah, it kind of highlights there's probably an in-group and an out-group. And if you follow BC politics, it's probably easy to guess who's on which side of that aisle in that party.
Most likely, but also that's a very dysfunctional way to manage caucus.
It tracks.
Politics is a team sport, and you can't be dividing your team down the middle, or the right and the far right in this case.
Following Shaw's piece, several MLAs did speak out against it on the Conservative bench. I think it was Brennan Day said he hasn't seen it, and he thinks they should leave the language policing to the left, right? And it's not the kind of terminology fights that he thinks are productive for the Conservatives, because they're not.
Yeah. He said he didn't know anyone in caucus that received such a directive.
And then,
in addition to that, and same thing for Misty Van Popta, came out pretty strong with also another no idea what this is referring to. Don't know anyone who's seen this supposed directive.
Yeah, and Finley's denunciation of it and denial is quite strong. She says, I don't know where it came from. He presented no evidence. There's no such directive. I think this is mere speculation, and I don't want to comment on hypotheticals. Like, she did a one-on-one interview with Black Press, of all. And I think this is like one of the first interviews she's done in a couple months, which is also a thing. So, I don't know. Like, I have my issues with some of Rob Shaw's takes and angles he pits, but like, I don't believe he makes shit up. Right? Yeah,
no, if you can take any issues with Rob Shaw's work, it's always on the interpretation, which is always a matter of judgment kind of thing. People can look at things different ways. The factual reporting, he's solid on. So he wouldn't have gone to press with this without something on it. So it clearly had a decent enough source that was providing him this, that he felt comfortable going with this.
Yeah, like one thing he has is sources. Like between he and Jazz Johal and a couple of the other veteran reporters, Vaughn Palmer, like they know everyone. That's their thing, is access journalism. They only publish when they have the facts, and they can get the facts because everyone will talk to them. So someone made something up here, because Finley didn't even like weasel around like the phrasing versus what Shaw said. So maybe she didn't write it. Maybe it came from Angelo Isidoro, who just happens to not be the executive director of the BC Conservatives anymore.
I mean, yeah, not sure if it would necessarily be him, but it wouldn't shock me if there is a little there. Like, there's two potential theories here. One is that some staffer went, started spitballing some stuff, passed around like, hey, what do you guys think of this? And then that got passed on to Rob Shaw before, not an official, this is the position we're taking, but, working document kind of thing. One possibility there. The other is that there's someone with an axe to grind against Finley and just made it up whole cloth and pushed it out. And it's just hard to know with what's available at the moment.
The latter seems less likely given Shaw's connections, and he wouldn't. I don't believe he'd get taken for a ride by one source. I suspect he had a secondary.
Multiple sources, which depending on how fractious things are there, not out of the question, because it certainly seems like Finley's not done a great job of bringing everyone together and having that like fresh out of leadership. We're trying to unify around the common goals and try to at least suppress a bit the internal divisions. That really has not happened.
Yeah, I mentioned Angelo Isidoro is out today as Conservative Party Executive Director. Jazz Johal is reporting that Managing Director Phil Dippenar is also out. Isidoro's official statement is parting on good ways and wishes her well. Maybe he's got something else lined up, but it's also curious that like he's leaving while others are leaving. Ian Patton, the MLA, just resigned as the Lower Mainland lieutenant. He's saying, I have too much on my plate. I need to focus on my constituents and my family and my farming. Because...
Well, if that isn't a screw you, that's...
He's still committed to the party, he said. He still supports her.
Sure, but like nobody who's really actually caring about the leader and like firmly behind them puts the, oh yeah, and my farming as one of the things they need to focus on that. Even if they want to do a little more farming, it doesn't get that kind of billing without it being I'm out.
And then Johal also reported that 3 MLAs, including Rosalind Bird in Prince George, Lynn Block in West Vancouver, and Ian Patton, as mentioned, have rejected requests to step down so that she could run in a by-election, which is more interesting drama within the party. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty common for a new leader to come in and ask someone to step down so they can run. I don't actually have a great sense of how common it is to say no and how much work it takes to find someone on that. More interestingly is the fact that we now know the names of it, because all the other times where someone has stepped down. I don't think we got any reporting really on who was asked and kind of what the writings under consideration were.
Yeah, we don't know how many people Pierre Poilievre asked, for example. But he was able to find
probably
someone.
a few if he ended up in rural Alberta.
He just wanted to find the safest seat, the easiest path, so he didn't have to spend any time licking his wound there. The obvious seat, I think, for Finlay should be her husband, Bruce Chapman, but it seems like the reporting is suggesting he has not been asked, or maybe he didn't want to step down. I don't know. It's weird, though, that you would have and aim to have a husband and wife in caucus together where one is leader. I don't know what their marriage dynamic is, and I'm not, mine is good, but still feels like a conflict. So, I don't know. There's all of that. The final bit of drama from the BC Conservatives this week was because they're just a sieve now, or not a sieve is slowing it down too much. They're just pouring all the leaks. During her leadership race, someone has leaked the messages, at least one of the messages she sent to her leadership team. One of them was about fellow MLA Teresa Watt, who had endorsed Ian Patten, and Finlay writes, and Vancouver Sun somehow confirmed this with video of her phone, which raises a lot more questions about how close the leaks are to Finlay. But the message, it said, remember...
Was there actually video of her phone in this? I just thought the thing said it was... They confirmed the number was hers.
In the subhead of Lazenby's post on the Vancouver Sun, a video provided to Post Media shows the message came from Finlay's personal cell phone.
Okay.
Someone's looking over her shoulder and filming her phone. Or maybe she didn't even have it at the time.
Yeah.
She writes, remember that WeChat is China government controlled and Teresa Watt MLA is CCP and sold many memberships to CCP Chinese in Richmond. The Chinese community that supports us knows this. Basically implying that Teresa Watt is a foreign agent and is now in her caucus.
Raises some uncomfortable questions. Like either there's some there to the accusation, in which case, why is this not going to the RCMP? And why is that person still in caucus? Or you have a leader that is just throwing mud at the members of the caucus that she's going to be leading shortly. Like, both of those are bad, and neither of them are good judgment.
Yeah, I don't love to hand it to Brad West, but he made exactly that point. He's like, if this is true, go to the cops. What are you doing?
I also called it amateur hour, which... Yeah, point to him on that one.
Finlay says she has met with Watt and they've had positive conversations and they look forward to working together and just kind of dodge the issue. She does not deny sending this message either. Hard to when people can say, no, we saw it on your phone. So, yeah, real good time to be David Eby. If only the province didn't also hate him. Or at least was... either ambivalent or negative. Well, he's blessed by incompetent opposition.
Yeah, he would hardly be the first Canadian politician that has been saved by an incompetent and shambolic opposition. But guess he's finally got some Doug Ford's luck on that one.
I don't know if we have anything else to say about BC Conservatives. We'll see if they're still a party by the end of the year.
There's one other thing that ties into the conversation we had last week on Centre BC. In addition to all this drama, they're also passed out talking points, the Conservative MLAs, about, among other things, the former Premier Christy Clark, where they assert that she is an NDP surrogate, or NDP proxy, which is just amazing. And this comes after there's a Globe and Mail article over the weekend about Centre BC where Clark says a few nice things about them, and the Conservatives just kind of went, I don't want to say nuclear because that's not the right thing, just went out in a really bizarre direction with that, which also tells you they don't have their drums buttoned down.
They're just flailing, and as they flail, they're mostly smacking at people largely on their own side.
Yeah, I mean, of all the people to be an NDP proxy, like Christy Clark is probably near the bottom of that list.
She did consider running for the federal Liberals, which is basically communism, Scott, in these people's minds.
Well, I mean, if Corey Tonight can be a Liberal and by proxy Caroline Elliott, then sure.
What do words mean anymore? On the other side of the aisle, it's not 100% unanimity for the NDP. One minister, Kelly Green, drew some headlines this week because she's Minister for Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, and she was, quote, disappointed by the approval of one LNG project. She's a Richmond MLA, so it's hard to say it's really about her specific residents because the LNG project is not in her riding. But I think for a cabinet minister to express disappointment but then stay in cabinet with a cabinet decision publicly is rare. But arguably this is just maybe EB letting the valve open a little to try to relieve some internal pressure. Like, fine, you can say one word negative about our party publicly, and then maybe that'll be enough. And I don't think it'll be enough to satisfy anyone, but it drew some notability that it's incredibly rare for cabinet, not just caucus, but someone in cabinet to...
Well, there's the whole concept of cabinet solidarity is that once a decision in cabinet has been made, that everybody's supposed to stick with it and defend it. You know, in the past, when cabinet ministers actually resigned, it would be the case that if someone had an objection to something like this, they would either keep their dissent limited to the caucus room or the cabinet table, or they would leave the cabinet and resign.
That's what Steve Gilbo did eventually.
Yeah, Michael Chong did
a while
during the first Harper cabinet. Like, it's not unheard of, but like the fact that we have two names in the past 20 years, I think goes to show how much the idea that cabinet ministers should resign when they have a strong disagreement with the government has weakened.
Yeah, but also the joke we had and that everyone had was Guilbeault isn't resigning for so long.
Yeah, because he threatened to resign so many times that basically people stopped taking it seriously, which I think also made it much less impactful when he finally did.
Mm-hmm. So that's just the one thing I think to watch on the NDP side is how much tension is still in there, and I think this is a sign that it's in caucus and in cabinet as well, but it's nothing compared to where the Conservatives are. And 1BC, meanwhile, is being sued. Former Chief of Staff Tim Thielman is suing Dallas Brody over how he was fired and alleging that she is running a defamation campaign against him. So one time we'll link to the Western Standard in the show notes here is when they report on their own infighting.
Yeah, I don't think anyone else cares enough about 1BC to really pick up this story and run with it.
I mean, I don't have much more to say about it than that, but it's just...
Yeah, no, this is one of the, like, get the popcorn out and see where this lands.
Yeah, I don't have a side. I don't care who wins this fight. I'm just gonna enjoy it and see how they do. Well, finally, provincially, one fight the government has lost is over whether the Mental Health Act is constitutional. The Council of Canadians with Disabilities has been fighting a decade-long battle over the law, going all the way to the Supreme Court just for the right to challenge the law. They won a landmark Supreme Court of Canada case a year or two ago, establishing that they could be a public interest litigant in this case. And now the BC Supreme Court has ruled essentially that the Mental Health Act's or presumption that if you are involuntarily admitted to a mental health institution, you are consenting to everything they do to you. That goes too far. according to the Supreme Court of Canada. And there are cases where people may be involuntarily admitted to...
You mean the Supreme Court of BC, right?
The Supreme Court of BC's decision. Yes, it's confusing. We should have a Court of King's Bench or a Superior Court.
Or at least make the BC Supreme Court the appellate level court in BC. Having it be the trial court is just linguistically dumb.
It's not the most supreme.
No, it's quite literally the bottom of the totem pole on that one.
Well, in this case, they did do a judicial review of the law, and what they found is, yes, if you are involuntarily admitted to a mental health institution, then the province has to, or people who are going to give you treatment have to determine if you are able to give consent, and if you can, they have to seek it instead of just presuming they can. The province now has 6 months to update the law or appeal the case, and they haven't said what they're going to do. Of course, they've also passed new amendments since this case started to expand the use of involuntary care and treatment in the province. But basically, I'm just really interested to see where the province goes with this. Yeah,
we only noticed this decision come out shortly before court, so we've not had a chance to really dig into this one. But yeah, I kind of agree that the interesting part for the non-lawyers isn't going to be the fine points of the decision so much as what the government does. Because this one definitely makes it a little more difficult for the government to go forward with their plans, or at least they're going to have to make some changes on that, and how they go about that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Particularly because EB's not as, doesn't stick to his positions quite as much as he used to.
And I think they could, stick largely with the position they've taken while incorporating the requirements of this decision. This doesn't strike down the Mental Health Act. This just notes that BC is basically the only province that had this presumed consent model for involuntary admission. Other provinces do have involuntary admissions in certain cases under their various mental health acts, but they all tend to be less presumptive, I guess. And so the uniqueness of BC's, the fact, the overwhelming evidence of experts before the trial court said there are cases where people will be able to consent even though they are in involuntary care, kind of just open the door for the court to say, all right, those people have constitutional rights that are not just poofed into existence. So we have to acknowledge them and incorporate them, because it probably isn't that hard. But maybe the province will fight it and appeal it and drag this on. The trial itself went for over a month, 32 days, 34 days. I missed the number, but over 30 days of trial, a dozen expert witnesses, the Council of Canadians with Disabilities won full costs as well. So maybe the province will be mad about that, but I don't know. If I were them, I would just change the law. Let's jump to federal politics. We are in the midst of a trade war. It's so tired at this point. We don't even touch on the week-by-week stories of what, tariff du jour Trump has threatened us with, and what concession of the month Carney has made. But this month, or in the past week, I guess, Carney has announced that the Netflix tax, the digital streaming service fee that was going to apply to Netflix and some other large online platforms that would have funded Canadian broadcasting, is just going to be goodbye. We're not going to do that like we promised or said we were going to do. Instead, we have all of this tax money we can just give to our content creators, and we'll do it that way. We just won't tax the Netflix, which makes US tech happy.
In theory, I actually don't mind it coming out of general revenue rather than these boutique taxes on specific sectors and whatnot. Broad-based, simple taxes, ideally the way to go on this. That said, this has been something that was pointed to as a trade irritant, and I can even sympathize with an idea of Cardi basically using the Trump situation to just make a bunch of changes that gets rid of some like the bad policy stuff and use Trump as the booty man to justify that. Otherwise, supply management has me taken out, and this way else remains a question. But like at the same time, there are the trade war going on, and the U.S. has been pretty clear that they don't consider any of these concessions to be something that Canada gets credit for in the negotiation. So like at that point, why bother? Like,
because Google, Netflix, and Amazon sponsored Canada-US Friendship Day at a baseball game that Dominic LeBlanc attended.
I don't think that's going to be the thing that's going to sway the government on that.
Carney's official reasoning is, we'd made this decision months ago. He didn't like the policy. He made it because of concerns about affordability. Would it make Netflix too expensive for people?
Well, it would. This is the sort of thing that does get passed on to consumers. So like one of the things that's important to understand about TATS policy is the entity that is cutting the check to the government on the TATS is not necessarily the one that ultimately pays for it. And this is a good example of kind of the situations where it would get passed through to consumers on there. So like there's a legitimate concern on that one. But yeah, it just like, I don't know, the main thing I just focus on this is like this tech and energy are clearly the two things that have the US has indicated are pain points on it. So like if you're going to play hardball, those are the things you press on.
Counterpoint, no. Is Carney's position. He was asked whether energy could be a good leverage point. And he said, no, being a reliable supplier is important. Canadians are reliable. Canadians can be trusted. When you're a supplier of a key commodity, key service, you've got to think really hard about not supplying it. I don't see the value of it. When you're dealing with an unreliable negotiator, the best thing to be is the reliable one. When they go low, Scott, we go reliable. It sucks so much.
I don't buy that for a second. Like anybody that isn't within like a couple miles of Pennsylvania Avenue is going to be able to figure out who's the reliable party and who's the one that is having to mount undesirable defensive action in a trade war on this. Like Germany the German LNG export deal just moved ahead today or yesterday on it. And I don't think if Canada was to put an export tax on or consider some other stuff related to this, that they would for a moment take a second look at the deal because of it. Like everybody knows the score on this, and nothing Carney's going to do is going to change that.
So weird, just like
what I really think it is this is Alberta referendum management. And, we could get a very different, or at least a somewhat different, well, everything's on the table position on October 20th.
Which was his position before these statements, that everything is on the table. But how much of everything is everything remains to be seen. It's weird, the Alberta referendums that are coming up, how little Danielle Smith talks about them, considering she launched them. I think she's kind of just hoping they quietly, well, the 8 or whatever, the 9 questions she put quietly pass, but then the should we have a separation referendum one quietly fails.
I think she's been kind of playing both sides of things the whole time.
Yeah.
I think she's tried to leave herself enough room that no matter what the outcome is, she can claim to have been on the side of history on that one.
Indeed. For Carney's part, he's also got to think about by-elections in the coming months. He has just announced 3 by-elections coming up for August 31st, a nice summer elections. Usually, I feel like summer by-elections are pretty rare. Outside of absolute necessity, but I think these ones were coming due. So we're getting by-elections in North Vancouver, Capilano, Beaches East York, and Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord, so BC, Ontario, and Quebec. 2 Liberals and a Conservative vacated to force these by-elections. 2 very safe Liberal ridings, to be clear.
Yeah, the Quebec... North Vancouver, I think, went Conservative during 2011, but it
was 60% Liberal for Jonathan Wilkinson in 2025. It was redistricted in 2021, but he won it with 45% then. In 2019, he won it with 43%. In 2015, he won it with 57%.
Yeah, so
it was also redistributed in 2011 when the Conservatives had it.
So has been an area where the Conservatives have been competitive in the past when they're nationally competitive, but in the current situation, not happening. It's going to be an easy Liberal pickup. And same thing with Beaches East York, except it's the NDP that has the 1 point on it when they were riding very, very high and managed to scoop the riding.
Yeah, in 2011, and that's why I think we saw some rumors that Mike Layton, Jack Layton's son and former Toronto City Councillor, was considering a run, but I think he was also the one that
got pointed to the most of Avi Lewis really should get into the House of Commons and grab the first sets of by-elections that are possible. That was the one that got pointed to as the place he ought to consider. I could also see that
looking at 2025, it's not a good choice.
Yeah, I also could see Nate Erskine-Smith having a bit of a incumbency effect on that riding in particular.
Yeah, he's held it since 2015.
Yeah,
was pretty strong and
generally pretty popular in the riding, and has an actual brand for himself as independent of the party.
Yeah, and he's probably the most orange Liberal there was.
Yeah, I could see the argument that you take him out and it becomes less of a Liberal runaway with that, and the NDP get more competitive. That said, it's not a huge... It's not like the NDP are within spitting distance. They'd have to make up a lot of ground on that.
Yeah, they'd have to completely rebuild their presence there. I don't know if they ever even had a constituency association there. That might have been a fluke. The previous elections had all been won by Liberals, and going back to 1988 when the NDP had taken it, when Ed Broadbent had his strongest showing.
So in Ontario, the federal and provincial ridings line up, I think entirely, if not pretty much.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, they changed that a little while back. So on that one, the NDP's actually held it provincially a lot more frequently than federally, which I think means there's probably at least some NDP organization on the ground there. The NDP's been in bad shape because Singh left it in a pretty dismal state after the last election and kind of everything leading up to that. But there's probably enough of an organization that could be tapped into that if the NDP really wanted to make a play for it, they could mount a credible campaign, even if one that be definitely the underdog.
And I think they should. Of these 3, that's the one they should put their energy into, because North Vancouver, they have Beau and Ma there, but I don't know how much that overlaps. And federally, it feels hard. The Quebec one, they didn't have a presence in Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. That's, has been conservative since 2019. It was NDP in 2011, but Bloc before that. So it's an interesting one, though, because in 2025, Richard Martel, who's now a senator, got 34%, just ahead of the Bloc, who got 31.2%, and the Liberal, who got 31.1%. The NDP got 2%. The Liberals only spent $6,000. The Bloc spent $44,000, and the Conservatives spent $91,000. So, this is a 3-way race potentially. I think the Conservatives are going to be on the back foot in Quebec, which now makes it a Bloc Liberal race, with the Conservatives probably in third, but maybe they can hold it. But I think this is the one that's the most interesting of the 3.
Yeah, I think it's the only one that's really likely to have any chance of switching.
And the Liberals want it to shore up their technical on paper majority into one that's someone can miss a vote kind of thing. But looking ahead beyond these three, there's still 4 more by-elections to come. In Quebec, there's going to be another by-election soon because an MLA or an MP, Savard Tremblay, has resigned to run in the provincial election. He's opened up the seat Saint Hyacinthe Bagot Acton. He had won the last election with 44%, and the Libs were runners-up with 34%, so that'll be another Bloc Liberal race. Loyer Saint Marie is Stephen Guilbeault's riding, but he won with 52%, so like maybe that's one where the NDP could hope to come back. They were runners-up there and held it, I believe, in 2011 and 2015. That was former interim leader Hélène Lavitière, her riding for a couple elections. And so I don't know if Avi Lewis's French will be strong enough to run there, but that's a seat the NDP could also put some resources in. And if the Liberals lost the Quebec seat, could be bad for I don't remember what their exact standing in the House of Commons is right now. Can they afford to lose one seat? Liberals have 172 seats right now.
So right on the edge.
Yeah. With the speaker. They could afford to lose 2 seats and still be above 50%. But we also have the NDP's Alexandre Boularice, who's going to run provincially. He is an independent right now, so he won with 41% ahead of the Liberals' 31.6%. That's going to be a tight 2 to 3-way race if the Bloc really tries to surge. That'll be a real test of whether it's a Boularice seat or if they've actually built any base in Quebec.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think neither of us are Quebec experts, so everything with a grain of salt here, but what I gather, it's generally seen as that Boularice has been a pretty strong performer in his own right, and that he's been the main reason the NDP haven't been completely wiped out of Quebec. I think it's quite likely that the NDP don't manage to hold that one.
But sometimes those popular local people do intelligently put some effort into building structures that survive them. Sometimes they don't. TBD. The final by-election will be very boring in Yorkton Melville, the most Ontario-sounding name that is in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, this really sounds like it should be in like southern Ontario, like I don't know, just outside of like Kitchener or something.
Yeah, down there. Obviously, it is.
And that's on a Great Lake.
That's why I had to ask you what you thought Kathy Wagenthal, the Conservative who's resigning, got in the last election, and then I told you it was 77.6%. And you went, "Oh, that's not Ontario."
Yeah. When you look at the map, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's rural Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
Of course, it's going to be a conservative fortress there.
So maybe the Conservatives only get 60% because a splinter farther right-wing party takes 5 to 10 and the Liberals go up a little bit. But
the People's Party's still registered at this point. Like, you haven't heard from them forever.
No one's looking for them anymore.
Yeah.
It got boring. They need to shake up their leadership, maybe. So that's the teaser of what by-elections are coming up. A few other people are looking for jobs. According to CTV, former NDP leader Jagmeet Singh has applied and is in line, may or may not get it, as the next CEO of Destination Canada, the tourism bureau.
Him?
It's a weird one.
It's so weird because he has no experience in tourism. Okay, fair enough. Maybe you could say it's an organization. It's someone, who has experience being an executive and running these sorts of things might be what's needed. But as far as I can tell, Singh has only ever ran one organization, which was the federal NDP. Before that, he was a criminal defense lawyer. Well, I guess I was an Ontario provincial politician. But not a lot of executive experience. The one organization he has ran was in pretty rough shape when he was done with it. There really doesn't actually seem to be anything that actually points to him being a good person for this job or even particularly suitable for it. The only thing I can make sense of this with is that this is an attempt to get him a golden parachute for a soft landing in his post-politics career.
Yeah, for context, the current interim CEO and president of Destination Canada is a woman called Megan Ferrigno, whose past CV includes, working for Pacific Blue Cross as an associate vice president, working for the Public Health Services Agency of BC as a director at different levels, like kind of nonprofit or public sector, like
the executive leadership
level
route.
Yeah,
not necessarily a subject matter expert in the field of tourism, but at least someone you could be like, okay, this makes sense as a person to run an organization.
Yeah, understands large corporations. Some of the others on the board are tourism experts. The executive team obviously includes people in marketing and tourism and government consulting. Also, the other weird thing is the Indian government still really hates, as far as I know, Jagmeet Singh. Like, I don't think he's allowed to go to their country. And that just seems awkward. Like, you want someone... Tourism is a kind of thing... Like, everything is political, but, like, some things you can pretend aren't because they're just the status they don't shake the boat. They fall in line with the status quo. And that feels like the kind of person you want for Destination Canada, is someone boring who's just like, come skiing and visit the campgrounds and stuff. You don't need like, hey, we hate him because he's Sikh and therefore a terrorist. Like, that doesn't need to be part of Tourism Destination Canada. I mean, I'm not saying that should, invalidate all Sikh Canadians, but like Jagmeet Singh specifically has been targeted by the Indian government. It just politicizes the agency. Seems like there's better roles for him, is what I'm saying. But yeah, maybe he has done a lot of traveling and understands the markets and the options and the ways to talk to people.
Maybe. Also, didn't he move out to Burnaby for the purpose of running there? Like, he's from Ontario. And I've just looked at their website, and they're headquartered in downtown Vancouver on Howe Street. But does Jagmeet Singh even want to hang out in West Coast or want to go back home to Ontario?
I don't know where he is these days. I mean, in the end, I don't care. If he gets the job, that's interesting. If he doesn't, that's not surprising either. It's just weird it also made a story. Speaking of callbacks to that era, We Charity is in the news once more.
It's a name I haven't heard in a while.
The Democracy Watch has been fighting a court battle for years, kind of like the Council of Canadians with Disabilities has been fighting a court battle for years, just to start a court battle. In this case, Democracy Watch, following the ethics investigations around We Charity, said, "We don't agree with the ethics commissioner's findings. We think the court should review them." And there was a big battle. The government said, no, the ethics commissioner's rulings are non-justiciable. They're non-reviewable by the courts. And this went back and forth through the appellants all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada, who's now ruled that, yes, the courts can look at the ethics commissioner's decisions and decide whether politicians and parliamentarians violated the law that they wrote for themselves. So now they're actually going to have that case. And in another few years, we'll find out if Trudeau violated the Ethics Act around the We Charity file.
Long after everyone involved with this has left politics.
Sometimes justice is slow.
I mean, in Canada, it's always slow.
Yes. God, this goes back to 2021. Anyway, good for Democracy Watch.
If this was a criminal case, it would have been Jordaned out by now.
The appellate appeals don't apply to the Jordan principle, I think, or at least there's caveats there. So, like, I don't think this made it to the Ontario Supreme Court or whatever the first level was that quickly. But, here we are, slowly trying to find out whether Trudeau did a crime. Well, I mean, we did have Bill Morneau thrown under the bus for that one, but now it'll be Justin Trudeau's turn. I guess he'll have to come testify or, give an affidavit or something.
I mean, are we also to litigate the Age of Con thing while we're at it?
And then we can do the Emergencies Act.
Yeah.
Just all the highlights.
And Trudeau shared a lot of ethics issues, didn't he?
I'm just wondering what Mark Carney's first scandal is going to be.
I mean, if history's any indication, it's going to be someone being a little too close to the government with all of the industrial policy payouts going out.
Yeah, there was
that's just Liberal Party history more than anything else.
Sure.
Just points that way.
There was the whiff of scandal around his investments in Brookfield.
I mean, that always was a bit of a...
Yeah. It's more of a reach of
It was a reach.
But we'll see. Maybe he's above board and always will be, but the party doesn't have a great history. But that's Canada.
I mean, it might not even be him. It's probably going to be some minister that screws that up.
Well, I'll be in Ottawa next week, so surprise bit of programming that we have still yet to figure out, but stay tuned for that either next week or else I'll talk to you in 2 weeks. And that has been Politicoast. Find links to everything we talked about at politicoast.ca. Support the show and get access to our exclusive Slack channel at patreon.com/politicoast. Our intro music is Beautiful British Columbia by Serge Plotnikov. Politicoast is a production of Leg and Boot Media. Audio editing provided by Jesse Woodward at listener-supported CHLY 101.7 FM in Nanaimo. Learn more at chly.ca.